Hi, welcome back to Christine's Home Affairs.
Hello, I'm here too again.
For those that haven't met Mum before, this is my mum Hannah, and she makes an appearance whenever she comes up to visit me. We live a
Yes.
couple of hours apart.
Yeah,
So
we do,
yeah.
It's 2 hours and 10 minutes actually.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are going to be working on another project together, and you may even notice that we're kind of looking a little bit like twins today.
Exactly, yeah.
Mum's bought herself a new toy. Grab your toy.
That's my toy. Look, there you go.
So I've got the HTV heat press over here, the one that is an automatic one. Mum saw somebody on our Facebook group bought one a few weeks ago, so she had to go and buy herself a heat press as well.
do.
And as a result of that, she decided to buy some vinyl transfers. So I think a few old chooks in the iron-on transfers suits us perfectly. For those that aren't Australian and don't know what chooks are slang for chickens. So a few old chickens on our T-shirts, I think that matches us perfectly.
Yes, I think that's cute.
And it matches our personalities too. A little bit scary. So today's project, we are going to be making some key fobs. Mum had seen some key fobs that I'd made previously, so I figured that's a nice easy project to do. That's what we're doing. You can bring yours up.
Yes, I will.
So these are the key fobs. We're going to be doing it two ways. One is just going to be a plain piece of fabric, and the other one is going to have a contrast piece of fabric with the same plain fabric on the inside. Hang around whilst we make up these key fobs.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, here are all the bits that we're going to use today. Mum and I are going to make one each in both of the key fobs. So we're going to be doing two different types, and we'll each make one of each of them. Happy with that?
I'm happy with that.
Very good.
I'm sure yours be nicer than mine.
What we need for each of our projects is one strip of fabric that is 16 by 4 inches or 40 by 10 centimetres, and you only need one piece of fabric, and this will be for the plain key fob. So Mum and I will have one each of those. For the key fob that's got the contrast on it, we need 2 1/4 inches by 16 inches, which is 5.7 by 40 centimetres. Then we want a contrast piece of fabric which is 16 by 1 1/4 inches or 40 by 3.5 centimetres. We'll also be using some stabiliser, and I'm using the lightest weight stabiliser that I can find. This is a Vilene hemming tape, also known as stitch witchery or just a double-sided hemming tape. If you have a really lightweight fusible interfacing, that will work perfectly as well, but we just want something nice and light. We'll be using these key fob attachments, and I think that's all we need. So we're ready to get started.
We're ready.
Okay. Oh, the other thing we're going to do, Mum's got an inch ruler, I've got a centimetre ruler, so I'm going to be working in centimetres today. Mum's going to be working in inches. Not that that really matters. Okay, let's start with the simple one first. Put everything else out of the way. What we need to do with our 16-inch piece of fabric is fold it in half lengthwise. We want to be able to press this and set a crease so that it's easier to fold later. Once we've done the centre, we'll bring the raw edges in to the centre there, fold those edges in, and then we'll take it to the heat press or the iron and just set those creases. I'll go and do those quickly now. All right, so we've set the creases. What we're going to do now is sew the short ends together, have the right side faced up, bring the short edges together, and you can pin or clip those edges in place. And we can take this to the machine and sew straight across there. Okay, so the seam allowance isn't critical for this one. You can use whatever seam allowance you prefer. I'm just going to be using 1/4 inch today. Okay, we've done that. Now we can press our seams open. That just allows for the bulk of the fabric to be distributed more evenly. And then what we want to do is take some stitch witchery or your fusible interfacing of any kind, and we're going to place that to the inside of our fabric. So this piece here is 1 inch wide, and what I've got here is a fold that's 1 inch wide. I'm going to place the stabilizer over the fabric, fold that over. I'll just clip it in place for the time being and bring that around to the other side so that I can stabilize the entire piece. Doesn't even have to be that even because this is such a lightweight product that as you fold it over, it will sit under your fabric nice and evenly. Oh, there's one for you, Mum. Oops, that's not the one.
That's the one.
Sorry. And just keep your seams pressed open. Once you've placed that piece of stabilizer underneath, you can fold the other side over as well. So I'm only putting one piece under this one today. I don't want too much weight in the fabric. I want the claws of these clamps to be able to go through all the layers easily. So once you've got both sides folded into the center there and our fusible stuff on the inside, we can fold that together one more time. And we've made a tube or a cylinder of our fabric. What I'm going to do now is take this back to the heat press and press it so that it fuses those fibres together, and then we can go and stitch this down both long edges. It really doesn't matter whereabouts you start sewing, but I'm just going to make sure I've got the rest of the tube out of the way, sew down the long edge. When I've come back to the beginning, I'll do the same on the other side. You can, if you like, go and stitch a few extra lines down the centre of this and even use a contrasting thread to have a nice decorative stitch along the centre. Alright, the sewing part of this is completely finished. Now we have the seam line just along here. What most people do when they're making these key fobs is they'll fold it at the seam line and then they'll put the seam line underneath between the claws of that key fob. I don't like the amount of bulk that's under there, so what I'm going to do is have the seam line right on the very edge. I'll fold that and then I'll take the other end of the fabric, line up those side edges so that they're nice and even. And the reason why we closed this up as well is so that we wouldn't have raw edges on the inside of our key fob. These claws that are in the key fob holder will clamp onto your fabric, so we'll place that over the fabric like that and sit the folded edge right into the fold, and you can start closing that with your hand if you've got the strength. You'll need pliers like this anyway. Line up the fabric so that it sits evenly and clamp that shut, and we're completely finished. So you can give that a tug and those claws will hold that fabric in place. So choose a colour, Mum.
Yes, I choose. I wanted that one before. No, you took mine.
Oh, sorry.
So we take the gold one, put it in there.
How strong are you?
Very strong. Look at that. And then you take that. I have to be careful with the ring.
Which ring, yours or the...
No, that one.
Oh, that one doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
You can actually take those rings off if you find that they're in the way. All right, there we go. So that's the easy one done.
Mine is not straight.
Well, it's the first time you've done them.
Yeah.
It looks nice for a first time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Okay, so that one's done. For the next one, we have the main piece of fabric at 2 1/4 inches, which is about 5.8 centimetres, and our contrast fabric is 1 1/4 inches in width, which is 3.5 centimetres. With our main fabric, we're going to mark a line on either side that is 5/8 of an inch from the outside edge, or 1.5 centimetres. So Mum's working with inches, I'm working with centimetres. We want the right side of the fabric faced up because it'll be easier for us to see the markings we're making. And if you line up your ruler along the very edge, Mum's lining up 5/8 of an inch with hers, and I've got 1.5 centimetres. Mark that line right across the fabric, and we'll do that on both sides. And with our contrast piece of fabric, we're going to mark 1/4 of an inch on each side. When you have really narrow fabric that you need to press, a couple of great tools that you can use rather than marking lines with a chalk are things like this. These are point turners, I think. They also mark a crease. This one is actually called a crease marker. And then you've got your normal tracing wheel. You would measure 6 millimetres or 1/4 of an inch. And with the spikes of your tracing wheel, you can mark an indent in the fabric like that. And then you can actually fold the fabric over more easily because of that dent it's created. The other thing you can use is a crease marker. It's got just a flat edge, and you can mark a crease in your fabric like that, or you can do the same with a point turner. You can't see the indentation, but I can. And all you do is fold it at that indentation that you've made. So if you can't mark a line with your chalk, you can use something sharp like that. And whilst I've waffled on, Mum's gone and folded her edges over.
I did.
So by marking those creases, it's much easier just to fold that fabric and then finger press it. Okay, I'll go and press those pieces now. Oh, haven't done that one yet.
We have to fold that one too. Me either.
So we'll fold the edges on these blue pieces as well, right at that line that we've marked. Okay, with those edges folded under, we also want to fold in the short edges. So we're going to fold that just 1/4 of an inch or 6 millimetres. We're really just tucking in those raw edges. And we'll repeat that for the other piece. And then fold those edges back in again. This hides any loose bits of thread that we might have. So this is where we confess we've made a couple of mistakes, and they were all my fault, I've got to admit that. So Mum's already got her fusible hemming tape to the inside of her fabric. So take your hemming tape and place that just to the inside section, and it's going to be about 1/4 of an inch shorter on each side to allow for that fold over hem that we've got. So place that to the centre. I'll tuck it in underneath the folded edge, and just make sure those folded edges are folded under. You can fold the long edges down, and then we'll take that back to the iron and we'll press this so that it sits nice and flat, and that hemming tape bonds those pieces together like it has on Mum's. I'll be right back. So with those raw edges fused down onto the fabric, you want to double check that this now measures 1 inch wide, because that's the width of our clamp. So that's 1 inch or 2.5 centimetres. And we can now take our contrast piece of fabric with the raw edges folded in and place it on top of the strip. But we're not going to place it on top of this side. We're going to place it on top of the raw edge here. So that will sit right over like that, and you'll just have a little bit of blue peeking out on the other side. So if you wanted to, you could actually make this contrast strip about 1/4 of an inch narrower, fold it in the same amount, and you would actually have a little bit more of that blue peeking out, kind of like this one here. But this is a mistake that we made earlier. We actually sewed our contrast strip onto the wrong side of the fabric. Again, that was my doing.
Yes, I followed your advice.
You did. But at least you listened to me.
Exactly, yeah.
So now what we can do is place this contrast fabric over the top of the raw edges here, and the easiest way to do that is with some double-sided tape.
Can't leave me the double-sided tape.
Oh, it's the best thing on earth.
Well, I see how I go.
And you'll place your contrast over the top. Just centre it all the way down the middle.
I don't believe that works. Oh, it didn't stick on properly.
Okay, now all we need to do is sew down the long edge of the contrast fabric, and that will stitch all of the layers in place. Let's go do that.
On the outside, yeah.
I forgot to film the correct version of sewing the two pieces together, so this is the one that we did earlier, but this gives you an idea of how to stitch it together. Okay, there's not much left to do at all. We've stitched our contrast fabric down onto our blue fabric, and we do have the folded edges under on the blue. Now, instead of opening out the seams, which we obviously can't do, you can do this either way. You can bring the right sides together and sew straight across here and bring it the right side out again. You'll end up having a lot of bulky seams underneath here. I don't like that because I don't think that these clamps are strong enough to hold the fabric. So all I will do, I'll have the inside fabric facing with a contrast on the outside, and I can sew straight across here. And make sure you sew in an area where that claw isn't going to go through. I'll actually go on the narrow side here. I just want to secure the fabric on the end there. Okay, which clamp have you got the right colour you want?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so now all we need to do, that's been sewn in place, all we need to do is place the clamp over the fabric just like we did before. And whilst Mum's doing that, had you wanted to sew this together from this side instead, what you would do now is to fold the edges over, and you could stitch across here, and that would be nice and secure. But you can see how much bulk is in the fabric here. If that were the case, instead of putting the clamps over here, I'd still put it down the other end and use that as the top end of my strap. So you've got a couple of options. Some people like to use glue to hold these clamps in place. I haven't had to yet, and I've done these with vinyl as well as regular fabric. But by the same token, you don't want to be yanking really hard either. That looks nice, Mum.
Yes.
So I'll just place that over the edge. It is actually a lot easier to clamp them shut when you don't have that ring on.
Would be, yeah.
Yeah, but you know, I'm just a little bit late. I'm just a little bit lazy sometimes.
I know you are. But you got it for me.
Yeah, see?
I'm very lazy
There you
too.
go. It's good time management skills, Mum.
No.
That's what we have.
Do you need my help?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Perfectly capable, I think.
You think?
Clamp it shut.
If you hold it more in the back, you have more power, you know.
Look at all that power.
Yeah.
That's not going anywhere. Pop the ring back on, find the other one, and we have some perfectly usable key fobs.
Yeah. Well done.
Yeah.
I like the contrast. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it looks much nicer with a contrast fabric on it.
Yeah. But I mean, you're sewing and compare my sewing. And I think that's maybe the difference between the domestic and the
No.
machine, what
No.
you got, you know. It's me.
I think if you weren't such a lead foot.
Right. But I put the speed down.
Did you? But you still put your foot right down on the pedal.
Well, that's what you
They
do.
work together. But it looks fine, Mum. Nothing wrong
I
with
have
that
to
at
put
all.
the metal on the pedal,
Pedal to the
or
metal.
pedal on the metal.
There you go. That's our key fobs done. Nice and simple. There are many different ways of making these key fobs. I think I mentioned the E3000 or E6000 glue. That's a way for people to make them and have the fabric sitting nice and securely against the key fobs if you're worried they're going to come apart. This fabric was thin enough that it's not going to cause an issue. Do you like them?
Yeah, I like them. I like the contrast with the orange and the blue.
The
Yeah.
contrast looks much nicer. If you grabbed a stripy piece of fabric and cut that on the diagonal, that would look awesome.
That would look good too, yeah.
This project wasn't without its failures. Mostly me, well, all of me really. I made mistakes.
I don't make mistakes.
You heard that. I'm not a mistake. So I accidentally sewed the contrast fabric onto the outer fabric rather than the folded edges earlier. And there were lots of other mistakes that I'd made, weren't there?
Yeah, the sizing too. You have to
cut the fabric wrong. So we did lots of things wrong.
No, she did, not I did.
You followed me perfectly.
Well, I did, sort of. I got the same thing, yeah.
So there you go, a couple of key fobs from a couple of old chooks. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Did you enjoy yourself?
I liked it, yes, I enjoyed myself. And it's not a couple of chooks, it's 6 chooks.
Okay.
8, actually.
She can count too. Anyway, we hope you've enjoyed this video and a quick visit from Mum, and we shall catch you next time. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.